Is Tokyo DisneySea the greatest park in the world? That right there is the question. This review is not a question of, is Tokyo DisneySea amazing? If you know anything about this park, you've likely heard incredible things, and let me tell you, every single thing you've heard holds up. It is shocking to me that a place like this exists because it is that cool. In this review, I'm going to walk you through the entire park. We're going to hit each section as you make your way around, talk about the best attractions there, what makes that land so cool, and then at the end of the video, I'm going to tell you whether I think this is the greatest park I've ever visited. But first, like the rest of the park reviews, let's talk about how you get here. Tokyo DisneySea is one of the two parks as a part of Tokyo Disney Resort. We took a local line from Tokyo to the resort and it drops you off right at Tokyo Disneyland, and then we took the monorail to DisneySea. You don't have to take the monorail to get there, but we figured that was probably the most efficient way to do so, although I'm pretty sure you can walk it if you wanted to. And what's nice is that it drops you off right at the front entrance, and let me tell you, what a way to make a first impression. I went into this place having seen almost nothing. I didn't look at any footage of the park. I wanted to be surprised. So I didn't even know what the front entrance was going to look like. But wow, this is incredible. For real, my first thought was, wait a minute, hold on, this is a Disney park? This is insane. And I hadn't even gone in yet. So what is the first thing you see? Once you enter into the turnstiles, your centerpiece is this massive globe, and they have these really cool water effects around it. They'll shoot up random blasts of water around this globe, which also has water running down it. And it's almost a Universal-esque effect. This globe doesn't rotate like the Universal globe, and I think it's just as cool. And something I also think worth mentioning is, when you're in that plaza, you look one way, that's where you go to enter the rest of the park. And if you look the other way, that's your monorail station. And the theming for that station matches the entire plaza. So everything blends together. And that is something that you will notice with this park is cohesion. As you fade from one themed land to the next, it is a seamless transition. It really is remarkable. So what is the theme of this area? The official name is Mediterranean Harbor. So it's a very old European-esque feel. You see these different colored buildings surrounding the entrance, and you might think, wow, that's a really cool facade. Here's the thing. That's not a facade. That's the on-site hotel. Yes, you can actually stay, essentially, in DisneySea. And man, what I would have given to do that. Except even I have a limit, because it turns out those rooms are really expensive. But you want to talk about an even more luxurious experience? How cool would that be to have a room that overlooks the park? But I think it's a brilliant idea, and we've seen other parks kind of take this method. I mean, you even look at Epic Universe. They're going to be doing something similar with their hotel. The hotel is designed to look like theming in the park, but people can actually stay there. And so that's what I love about the design of the entrance of Tokyo DisneySea. And right away, I was blown away with the attention to detail, the stonework, the crafting. There is not an inch of this place that went untouched. And that is what I couldn't believe. And this was just the beginning. Take that same principle and apply it to the entire park. And that's what this place is. It is not one amazing themed land. It is one amazing themed park. And everything is on a grand scale. One of the best comparisons I can make is if you've visited Europa Park, which before this I said is the most themed park in the world. But it's a different kind of theming. I feel like all of those details are small and intimate. The theming is done in individual lands that are a lot smaller, but here, there are only 7 themed lands. There will be more in the future. The park is going to be expanding soon. But as of right now, there's 7, and they're all huge. And I think that's what's so visually impressive about this park. Europa Park has lots of small nooks and crannies, and DisneySea has some too, but I feel like everywhere you look, there is tons to see. And I joked that this entire place is one giant photo op, because you could get your picture taken in front of anything in the park and it would look incredible. So getting back to Mediterranean Harbor, when you pass under this hotel, that is your big wow moment. Unfortunately, we did not really get this because the main centerpiece of the park, Mount Prometheus, had its entire front side under scaffolding. Major renovations. And let me tell you, I was pretty upset. It was a pretty big buzzkill moment. I was told that people have cried when they pass under that hotel and they see the mountain because it's just that cool. And what did I do when I walked under there? I just kind of got pissed off. I didn't get to see the most iconic view of the most beautiful park in the world, how it was designed to be seen. I was upset. And that was not the only thing under construction in this park. Over in the American waterfront, the SS Columbia, which is this massive cruise ship, was also partially under scaffolding. And I talked about this in the Tokyo Disneyland review, but the reason that they were doing this when I visited is because they were preparing for the Tokyo 2020 Olympics. They wanted everything done by then. It's quite ironic because the Olympics will not be happening this year, but at the time they didn't know that. So yeah, that was a major buzzkill moment, but there was a saving grace. The entire backside of the mountain in the mysterious island area was not under scaffolding, and that was incredible. And looking back on it, I'm actually glad that the front was under construction and not the inside. The mysterious island as a whole was my favorite themed land in the park. But I want to finish up a little bit with Mediterranean Harbor first. After you get that grand vista view and you can take your photos or whatever, you can go to the left or to the right. The left will take you to the American waterfront, and the right is what will lead you to the mysterious island, though you can get to the mysterious island by going to the left, but it just take you a little bit longer. The park layout as a whole has a very good design because everything kind of loops back together. So there's no dead ends, which is awesome. And right away, when you're in Mediterranean Harbor, you're gonna see water. And this is a general theme with Tokyo DisneySea. I mean, it's Tokyo DisneySea, so of course there's water everywhere. There's canals with boats running through it, and you can actually take a boat from one themed area to another. And I had the opportunity to do that at one point. I took a boat from Lost River Delta to Mediterranean Harbor, and it went through the mysterious island. It was really cool. Note that it is a transit ride, so it doesn't just take you on a cruise around the entire park and drop you back off where you boarded. This will take you from one area to another, so make sure to plan for that should you do this. So that's something that I really love about Mediterranean Harbor is you're seeing boats running around, and this is also a place where they'll do some shows. When we visited Tokyo DisneySea, they were doing Pirate Summer, and so at one point we saw a bunch of pirate ships shooting water at each other in a big theatrical Pirates of the Caribbean-like show. There was fire, smoke, and this was probably the wettest show I've ever seen. What do I mean by that? Well, they shot water cannons at every guest watching this show and got everyone soaked, and these water cannons flew far. You could be on the far side of the pathway, not anywhere close to the edge, and you still might get wet. That was the case with us, and we could not believe it. So yeah, this show was wild. Should you visit this area at night, you can see Fantasmic in this area. This show did go on while we were there. However, there were supposed to be 2 performances, and they ended up canceling the second one, which is a shame because I actually planned on seeing the second show that night as a big way to end out my day. And it must have been for weather or some technical reason because they only did the first showing of Fantasmic, which is unfortunate because I did miss it. But I could certainly hear it. We saw fireworks from the other side of the park, which was cool. Another thing I'll bring up with Mediterranean Harbor is I did have a meal in this section. What did I have? Shrimp and spaghetti pizza, and it was cheap, about 880 yen, which is about $8.80 in America. And it goes hand in hand with what I talked about with Tokyo Disneyland of how these parks in general are cheaper than the Disney parks in America. That goes for tickets as well as any merchandise or food that you buy here. I bought a shirt at a stand in Mediterranean Harbor and it was 1,400 yen or about $14. Really good deal. As for rides in Mediterranean Harbor, we went at the exact time that Soarin' Fantastic Flight was in its soft opening. This is the brand new flying theater. It's probably the first ride you get to when you enter this park. And unfortunately, we were not smart enough to grab a fast pass for it first thing in the morning because at one point during the day, it had a 3-hour line. And there were some members of our group that wanted to wait in that line, and they did, and they got to ride it. I chose not to spend 3 hours waiting in a line because after spending half a day at this park, I realized just how incredible this place is. And I want to focus more on immersing myself and seeing as much of it as I possibly could, which meant I had to sacrifice something, and so I did not do Soarin' Fantastic Flight. Next time I visit Tokyo DisneySea, because believe me, I will be back, I'll be sure to do this. Another attraction that I feel like I just have to mention because I think this is so cool. In this area, you can ride on a Venetian gondola. Yes, like the ones in Las Vegas. This is so cool. This is to the left side of Mediterranean Harbor, and it had a longer line, and so we did not do this, but I loved watching it. It was so cool. It was beautiful. In a theme park. This is in a theme park. I couldn't believe it. It's stuff like this that made me say, dang, I wish I had another day here because I easily could have had a second day and had plenty of more attractions to do. I did not do everything in this park. I'll try to talk as much as I can about the attractions that I did get to do, but it's small things like this that I was like, man, you could really spend a lot of time here. So that's enough about Mediterranean Harbor. Let's talk about Mysterious Island. As I mentioned earlier, this was my favorite themed land in the park, and this place is incredible. The whole land has a general Jules Verne theme, because you have 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, Journey to the Center of the Earth, and these were two attractions that I really liked. I had not seen POVs of either of these. Journey to the Center of the Earth ended up being my favorite ride in the park. It uses the same ride system as Test Track as well as Radiator Springs Racers. And what I think is incredible is that most of this ride takes place directly under Mount Prometheus. And that is insane. They fit this crazy high-tech dark ride in a freaking volcano. I'll talk a little bit about the ride. I don't want to go too much in depth because there's still so much to talk about. Spoiler warning if you don't want to know what takes place in this ride. It is rather short. You spend most of the ride actually going through a slow section where there's a slow build-up, seeing what is inside of the center of the earth, and then you hit this massive animatronic. It's probably one of the biggest animatronics I've ever seen, maybe the biggest ever. And then you speed up, you go into an upwards helix and shoot out of the volcano, head into a high-speed section and hit the brake run. So the ride experience doesn't last long, but it is so detailed that the more I rode it, the more I liked it. And this is a ride that will get a really long line, so be sure to get a fast pass for this if you can. You cannot reserve a fast pass online through any sort of app. You have to go there in person and get a return time. I had the fortunate opportunity of riding this ride 3 times during my visit, which was more than I was expecting. The reason why I got lucky the 3rd time is because it had gone down for a little bit, and I happened to be walking past the entrance right when they reopened it, and so I was able to get on immediately. It was just good timing. But let's talk about 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. This is a slow-moving family ride. Anyone can ride this. There is no height requirement because all of it takes place in this submarine, and this is what Finding Nemo submarine should have been. The ride tricks you into thinking that you're underwater. They use some really clever effects to simulate how certain objects would move if they were deep under the sea. There's so much to look at, and I think in general this was just a ride that exceeded my expectations. I didn't even know it existed before coming here, and it's definitely one of my favorite dark rides. It's not exciting per se, but the theming is like nothing I have ever seen before in my life. So in general, with Mysterious Island, this was a themed land that I kept on wanting to come back to over and over again just because of how cool it was. I loved Mediterranean Harbor. That was probably my 2nd favorite themed area in the park, but Mysterious Island was just a theme I'd never seen attempted before at a theme park, and that's what was so cool to me. So let's move on from there to Mermaid Lagoon. And while I spent a lot of time in the Mysterious Island, this was a themed land that I did not spend very much time in. In fact, I actually walked past it more times than I actually went in it. I only went in it at the end of the night, and by then the rides had closed, so I didn't do any of the rides there. They do have a roller coaster in this section, but it was closed due to maintenance. That's Flounder's Flying Fish Coaster. So that's a credit that I can look forward to getting next time I visit. But they also have a lot of smaller family attractions, most of them actually indoors. And the pictures that I've seen of this indoor section look really cool. It has a loose Little Mermaid theme, but it's not over the top Little Mermaid in your face. And that's something that you'll see overall with this park, is there is nothing inherently Disney about it. All those characters that you love and grew up with, yeah, you don't really get that here. That's really in Tokyo Disneyland. DisneySea, I think, is much more of the adult park. It's the Epcot of Disney World, except I think this place is 10 million times cooler than Epcot. It actually has cool rides. Plus, I think the themed lands here blow the pavilions out of the water, but that's just me. And looking back on it, I think the reason why I loved this park so much is because it did not feel like a Disney park. If this place were trying to be a Disney park, Mermaid Lagoon wouldn't look like this. The land would have Ariel and Ursula and King Neptune plastered everywhere to remind you of the movie. You will see some references to the movies and the general themes at this place, but what they've done is made everything generalized. You don't have to have seen the movie to appreciate these rides, attractions, and themed lands. The next themed land is Arabian Coast. What properties themed that? Well, Aladdin, of course. But instead of it being all about Aladdin, they made it about the location that the film would take place in. And even that's kind of loose. There's barely any references to Aladdin at all. The closest you get is they have a flying carpet ride themed to Jasmine and a magic lamp theater. I ended up not doing any of the rides in this area. This was a place that I just like to walk around in. But like everything else in this park, the theming was unbelievable. Each area of DisneySea has the best theming I've ever seen. The architecture in this, like if you like architecture and cool looking buildings, you're gonna be on cloud 9 when you visit this place. I love filming things, as you guys know. I had my camera out like the entire time at this park because I couldn't go 5 to 10 feet without finding another cool shot that I wanted. In fact, I would go as far as saying that this place is so detailed that it's hard to find things. I thought it was kind of hard to find the bathrooms because there weren't any obvious signs. They were like, bathrooms this way. You just kind of have to round a corner and hope for the best. But when you do find the bathrooms, something kind of cool. The soap that you get from the dispensers dispense soap in the shape of Mickey Mouse. That's kind of cool. So let's move on from Arabian Coast to Lost River Delta. And wow, this area is so freaking cool. This is where you'll find Raging Spirits, which is the other roller coaster in the park. It's basically a wild mouse with a loop. The ride was pretty boring, kind of stupid. I didn't care about it, but the theming for it was incredible. The main entrance for this attraction, where you have this pyramid, there's fire, statues. That was one of the coolest areas to just stand there and watch. I couldn't get enough of it, but that's not the only thing in this area. It's also where you have Indiana Jones and Temple of the Crystal Skull. This is very similar to the Indiana Jones attraction at Disneyland in California. This one has a slightly different theme, and it is very well done. It felt more modern than the one at Disneyland. The ride has an absolutely massive queue. It also has a single rider line, so that's helpful. And once you're actually riding it, it has the same layout as the other Indy, just different effects. And one of the coolest effects is that there's a working tornado during this ride. Like, what? This was definitely a fan favorite for all of us in the park. Making our way around, next up is Port Discovery. I unfortunately did not do any of the rides in this area, but here there is a Nemo and Friends attraction. I've heard it's not that great. The most visually interesting ride here is Aquatopia, which was something I really want to do. The thing is, I didn't want to get soaking wet, and frankly, that's the only reason why I decided to pass on it, because otherwise it looked really cool. It was like a trackless dark ride, but over water. So you just move from section to section around all these other vehicles, and it was really fun to watch, and at some point I'm sure I'll do this ride. I'll just have to suck up the fact that I'm probably gonna get soaking wet, which when you carry around a bunch of camera gear is never super ideal. And last section that I'm going to talk about, and there's a lot to talk about with this one, is the American waterfront. I talked a little bit about the SS Columbia, which is that massive cruise ship. That is the signature icon of this area. Something I really liked about it, and this just tells you how much the people who designed this place were paying attention. That cruise ship is located right next to the water. Not the water in the park, like the water outside the park. DisneySea is located next to a bay or something, and so this side of the park is what borders the actual water, and so naturally, that's where they put the cruise ship. It's about sightlines because you can look off from there and see how the water just keeps going, and that's so cool. Like, they didn't have to do that at all, but they did. And it's stuff like that that blows my mind. What is probably the signature attraction in the American waterfront is Tower of Terror. This Tower of Terror is different. This is not themed to the Hollywood Tower Hotel or the Twilight Zone. It has its own original theme to Hotel Hightower, and I really liked this version. It has the craziest pre-show. It's basically a magic act. I mean, I was trying to figure out how they did it, and I still can't figure it out. But after that, your actual ride experience is fairly similar, with up and down movements, giving you airtime. The big downside with this ride is that the restraint system uses a car-style seatbelt, so it goes over your shoulder and your lap, which is different from the other Tower of Terrors. So it means that you just don't get as much airtime because it's more restrictive. So I can't say I was a big fan of that, but I really like the attraction. It's so theatrical. And at night, if you watch the ride, you can see lightning blasts coming from the top, striking the elevators right as they drop, which is really cool. Couple other things to note. This land has a general, almost New York City-like feel, but not modern day New York, like old school New York. You'll see a streetcar driving around and just dumb details everywhere. Dumb because they didn't have to do it at all. Completely unnecessary, but they did. My favorite example is there's a manhole and there's a gas leak. So there's just smoke coming out of it. It's like, are you serious? They didn't need to do that at all. They could just left the manhole and no one would have cared. But the fact that they did this, it really makes you realize that this park in general is on a whole nother level. Last ride I'll talk about that's in this section is Toy Story Mania. It's in its own little area called Toyville Trolley Park, and it's kind of tucked away. I didn't even walk in this area until the end of the night, just because Toy Story Mania has never been a favorite ride of mine, so I didn't really care to do it. But theming wise, the area looked fantastic. There's general white Christmas lights everywhere. It was really neat. So I think I'm going to go ahead and start wrapping this up because I've talked for long enough, and what's crazy is I feel like I've only scratched the surface. There's so much to talk about with this park, which is absolutely insane. As I said in the beginning, I can't believe that a place like this exists because it did not feel real. This park does not have the best rides. The rides are good, the roller coasters are not, but the theming is the best in the world. So do I think Tokyo DisneySea is a perfect park? No, I don't think it is. I mean, in a perfect world, they'd have like Terran here or something. Throw in Klugheim, that'd fit right in. So I think in general, this park is perfect for people that are not interested in riding a ton of rides. They just want to walk around and enjoy the ambiance and the atmosphere. This is by far the best park to do that at. Although Europa Park is a very strong number 2. So is Tokyo DisneySea my favorite park? I don't know. If we are talking about just the park, not the attractions, then yes, I would say this is the best park I have ever been to. But once you start factoring in the rides that they have, I just don't know. That makes things so much trickier because I liked some of the rides here, but there's definitely a lot better ones out there, especially when it comes to roller coasters. This park just doesn't have anything, even on some other parks in Japan like Fuji-Q or Universal. In a perfect world, we'd take Tokyo DisneySea, add in some of the best roller coasters in the world, and yeah, you'd probably have like the ultimate theme park. But if you slapped Egenica in here, it just look out of place. I can see why they didn't go for big, huge roller coasters. So as far as final thoughts, is this my favorite Disney park? Oh, by a long shot. This is the least Disney park I've ever been to, which is why it is my favorite. It is the best themed, and more so than any park I've ever been to, I felt that Disney magic. A lot of people talk about how when they go into Magic Kingdom and it's so magical. I've never had that experience, ever. The closest I got was when I went to Galaxy's Edge or Pandora. Frankly, I felt more of that magic at Universal, but all that changed when I went to Tokyo DisneySea. That was a magical experience. I had a huge smile on my face walking out of that place. Yes, part of me was really sad that I was leaving, but the experience I got here was like nothing else. So should you visit Tokyo DisneySea? I think everyone who is watching this should plan on visiting this park at some point in their life. I know it's probably going to be expensive to get to, but trust me, this park is like stepping into another world. If I went back to Japan, I'd probably do 2 days here. I probably wouldn't even go back to Tokyo Disneyland. That place was totally lame compared to DisneySea. I'm so glad that DisneySea was the last park that we went to while we were in Japan because man, we ended on a high note. But anyways, I want to hear from you guys. If you've been to Tokyo DisneySea, what did you think? I'm sure there's a ton of stuff that I missed while making this review, just because there's so much to talk about. So feel free to fill in down below some attractions that you loved here, some small details you saw that I missed, as well as any tips or recommendations for people looking to visit this park. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.